welcome to the Splatmoto YouTube channel. Today I have a tutorial slash breakdown and then a progression that I think will help you build into being able to hold pressure. So what is holding pressure? The main idea here is to maintain traction on that rear wheel. So we don't want to be spinning the rear tire or sliding or whatever. We want to establish a connection with the ground and then hold that and finesse that using the clutch and throttle and all the controls, as well as body position, moving around on the bike. I want to talk about a lot of the details and progression that you can use that's really simple, that we break down step by step so that you don't have to go up on a big obstacle to actually learn this. You can start on just a small piece of dirt and start to build slowly and develop those movements and make them second nature before you go to the big obstacles. So I think that will be much safer and much easier and faster for your progression. But it can be jumping your rear wheel up to the top of a log and carrying your front wheel all the way up and over. It could be just riding through a rock section and floating your front tire off the ground. It's going to make your ceiling for progression just go up and up and up. And it's going to help you have a different perspective so that by the time you get to that big log, you're going to know whether it's safe to hit it for you or not. You're going to know whether you can consistently lift your front tire up or not.
And in your mind, you probably say, boy, I hope this works. So I decided that whenever I played anything, I knew whether it was going to work or not.
So I have a really cool progression for you guys to start working on holding pressure. Before you learn what I'm about to teach today, I would highly recommend working on corners, slow speed cone drills where you're working the clutch and throttle. I have other videos on that. There's plenty of other videos online for that. But if you've really worked on that stuff and you've gotten to where it's much more natural to use the clutch and throttle at very slow speeds, then we can start working on holding pressure. Now the progression that I have for you is ultra safe compared to the obstacle that I'm going to show right now. But what I want to do is show you all the individual components of what's happening and what I want you to focus on when we scale everything back just to the small piece of dirt that we're going to be practicing this on. So when it comes to holding pressure, one of the main components and key factors here is going to be getting our weight over the back of the bike, over the rear end of the motorcycle to put more weight on the rear tire. But the kicker to it is being able to use the clutch while doing that. So obviously at a certain point we're going to have to face our fears and try the bigger obstacles, but why not start just working on holding our body back on a small incline or a small piece of dirt first before we are forced to get up on an obstacle and do this. Let's start working that clutch finger with our body back on something that's small and not so intimidating. But to make this drill even easier, let's not even worry about the clutch. Let's just go fast enough to where we don't have to use the clutch and we can just focus on the body movements alone first. All right, we're coming in probably the middle range of power for the first year on Sam's bike. And the goal for this first level of progression here would just be to use the throttle. And just to start off, a small amount of body movement. So he starts with his head over the handlebars, drops the knees just a little bit, and then kicks the hips back as he's giving it throttle. And honestly, I'd rather have you come up a little shy and start smaller than to go too hard and loop it out backwards on this drill. But no big deal if you do, just jump off the back and avoid trouble if you can. So the first step is trying to do this without a clutch, just the throttle, very minimum throttle, and land both wheels flat on the ground on the other side of the piece of dirt. Now ultimately the clutch will give us the most control, but I really believe working just the throttle hand and doing this with just the throttle will help connect our brain to the motorcycle a little bit more on a really basic fundamental way. And I really believe that it does have a benefit to address that part of our motorcycle riding, of just having throttle control before we add in fine-tuned clutch work. And then this also gives us the ability to kind of separate things and just work on the body movements without having to coordinate using the clutch at the same time. So after we get pretty comfortable and consistent with that, now we can start adding the clutch in. First, I'm going to play two different videos, one without the clutch and one with the clutch. I want to see if you can hear the difference between the two. So the video where Sam is using the clutch up and over the dirt, you can hear a constant sound. You can kind of hear a light sound all the way up and over. So essentially what we're doing as we're going up and over the dirt is we're using the clutch finger in the same way that we would if we're doing a cone drill. We're looking for that sound that we're kind of giving it constant revs, keeping the RPMs up in the engine just a little bit above nothing. You know, it's not a lot of throttle, but it's just keeping the revs coming. And then we're controlling how fast we go. In this case, we're controlling the height of the front wheel with the clutch, or at least we're trying to, that and the body position as well. Now ultimately the goal is going to be to get the front wheel as high as we can comfortably, and we want to go as slow as we can up and over. That means we're going to have to control the wheel spin with the clutch and really help initiate the front end coming up with the body. All this stuff's going to be useful in other obstacles that we're doing, and again, we can do it on a small piece of dirt. Just learn how to go through the motions of this stuff real comfortably and build confidence. One more thing I want to share, and I wouldn't want you to go on learning how to hold pressure without learning this other really important thing that isn't necessarily holding pressure, but oftentimes is coupled with it when we go up and over big obstacles. For instance, if we go up an obstacle a little too fast, send our front tire a little too high, are we ready to hit our rear brake? So let's talk about the rear brake for a second. And again, this will be the next step in our goal, just riding over this piece of dirt. Can we bring our front wheel really high at a really slow speed, hit the rear brake, bring the front end down nice and straight and ride away again? You're gonna wanna do this not too slow at first, because if you do it too slow, you'll tip to the side, one side or the other. You're really gonna wanna do all that other stuff and get that super dialed nice and straight every single time. Even pressure down and back when we lift our front wheel up so that we can maintain balance. And then the slower we go, we have a little bit more balance, and or at least we're starting to develop our balance in this really easy way first. I would really recommend working on all the previous components that we've talked about first before starting to bring the front end high enough to hit the rear brake. Again, the biggest thing that we're going to try to take away from all of this when it comes to the holding pressure topic is the clutch work while we have our body weight back. So we really need to start to develop that clutch feel, and the slower we go, the more fine-tuned our clutch finger has to be. So take your time with this. The whole point is to make it automatic and be comfortable while doing this. For this drill, we want to get our rear tire all the way up to the very top and then hit the rear brake. Notice how as he's approaching this here, he drops his knees and then snaps the hips back as he's delivering power. So as he's kind of dropping his body weight down, he's already starting to build a little extra power with the clutch held in just a little bit, and then releases it as he snaps the hips back. And as you pull the clutch in before you hit the rear brake, make sure when the clutch is in, you're continuing to give it little revs of throttle so that you don't stall. A big part of holding pressure is counterweighting with the body. So notice the front end comes up here, it starts coming down, and then to help kind of keep it floating up in the air a little bit more, he starts to let the clutch out and kind of brings the body back to just keep the front end up in the air just a little bit longer. Now, that is a lot of information to take in all at once, but I still think even if you're a little bit better rider, I would really recommend trying this stuff and really try to get it dialed and smooth and consistent. And then if it's becoming really easy for you, we can always take it up a few notches, but still keep it on a small scale on relatively safer obstacles before we get to massive ones. And it's just a way to sort of stay safer and a little bit more comfortable while trying a little bit more technical moves on the big one. Before we get into this more advanced move, let's go back and repeat the process that we did with Sam, except for now we're going to do it on an obstacle that requires just a little bit more precision. Just like we were doing on the mound of dirt, try to give yourself the parameter of landing both wheels at the same time on the backside. This particular little log has sort of a drop off on the other side, which makes it a little bit more challenging. You send the bike up fast enough so that when you hit the brake, you've already created a little bit of momentum, and that will help bring the front wheel down. That'll basically is the only way we can balance ourselves through a situation like this. And you can get it pretty darn slow, but if you get too slow, you might just stall with your bike at 11 or 12 o'clock, front end up in the air, and then you'll have to jump off backwards or something like that. All right, you guys, that gives you some stuff to work with. Again, I think there's a lot more details we could get into, but I think this is the bulk of it, and it just gives you a good template of progression. You can do this with anything. You can start small on lots of different techniques. There's a way to scale it back and give yourself a little bit more comfort while trying to learn this stuff, because it can be kind of dangerous and just playing hard on dirt bikes when you're first trying to learn it. So I'll share a couple more clips with you guys, a couple random little B-roll clips, some examples of holding pressure. If you guys are a fan of what I do or the content that I create, or if you find it useful and it's making you a better rider, please go support this brand that helps me, Plu's Tires. They're out of the UK, and I truly believe they have one of the most dynamic hard enduro tires available in the world. It has a really unique compound that is sticky and tacky, but it's not so soft that it just rolls over on itself. It holds up and it has a stability to it. I haven't found anything that performs close to it out in the desert style riding that I do, while still being able to kind of hold up a little bit longer than some of the super gummy tires available out there. Take the time to really get things down until you start feeling that you have the control to move on to the next obstacles.